fishing, it's in my soul.
Welcome to the Salt Strong Podcast, disrupting fishing entertainment as you know it. Prepare to laugh. Prepare to get to know fishing legends in a whole new and unfiltered way. And on occasion, you might even learn a thing or two about fishing. Here's your host, Joe Simons. Like diamonds.
Hello, Salt Strong Nation. Joe Simons, like diamonds. We are back again. Salt Strong Unchurched. Have a new friend here, Dan Floen. We were connected via C12. Dan actually is one of our insider members, hardcore fisherman, and has a brand new book that's all about him going from being a fisherman and a lover of catching fish to a fisher of men. So Dan, welcome to the podcast, my friend.
Thanks, Joe. I appreciate it.
So a lot of people don't know your story yet. I'm going to just go right into it because I can relate dealing with some melanoma myself. You were diagnosed with stage 4 melanoma. Is that right?
Yeah, back in 2007, stage 4. And I was at that time given 8 months to live and said, you know, we needed to go home and get our affairs in order.
Wow. Do you remember where you were when you found out?
Well, it was at Moffitt Cancer Center is where the news came. Yeah. And then very shortly thereafter, we had Julie, my wife, join C12, a Christian CEO roundtable that we're both a part of, for the purpose of helping Julie run our company when I leave. And so that was a kind of surreal pill to swallow, you know, but we knew that, you know, we were praying and hoping for the best, but we also knew that we needed to prepare for if God's plan was to take me home, we needed to be ready for that also.
Where was it? Because that's a question I always get. I think as fishermen, we're out in the sun a lot and people always want to know, hey, where was it and what did it look like? Do you mind sharing that?
Yeah, it started right here on my jaw. And then also I had a spot on my back. As a younger man, I lived in Dallas and I had a catamaran. I sailed on the Gulf of Mexico just about every weekend. I would drive down and sail in the Gulf of Mexico. My nickname was Lobster because I was always red. And so I pretty well bought and paid for my melanoma, but that's where it started. And then actually we'd gone 5 years that we did some plastic surgery to get this taken out, and we had clear margins and all the rest. And then 5 years, they tell you, well, if you're clear for 5 years, then you're good to go, right? Well, it was after 5 years, I had a lump on my back that kind of hit me in a weird place as I'm driving, sitting in my car. It was kind of hurt. I thought, well, maybe it's just a cyst or something. Well, that turned out to be metastatic melanoma. And by the time we found that, it had gone to my adrenal glands. It was in my bones, a lot of places, a lot of soft tissue places. So it was not good.
Wow. And did it look like anything? I know it's an odd question, but people ask me all the time. Or was it more of just the feeling that, hey, there's just a big lump on my back?
It was just a lump. There was no coloration to it.
Wow.
It was under the skin, probably maybe a 1/4 inch under the skin. And, but it hurt. So, you know, and it really hurt when they took it out. Boy, I thought they were digging to China. But, and then when it did come out, I remember that day because actually the dermatologist who took it out, it wasn't even a surgeon at Moffitt at that point. But all of a sudden, what was kind of cheerful chatter went to dead silence, and she knew right away what it was, and it wasn't pretty. So.
And that's when you found out that it was the real deal, and you've shortly after found out potentially 8 months to live.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. It's never good when your surgeon tells you he's worried about you. It's usually not good news. So it was a real wake up call, to really start to get things in order on the one hand, but also, you're never, having been down this path, and I know you have too, Joe. I mean, you're never closer to God than when you're in the middle of the desert, in a storm like that. And so, as weird as it may sound to say, those were some of the most trying times of my life, but also some of the most vibrant times of my life, because I was so close, just, to God, just trying to search for any piece of wisdom and hope that he could give me, from the Bible or from other Christian friends. I was really seeking, every bit that I could get from him, and that it comforted me a lot. It really helped in the days that it didn't look like I was going to be here much longer.
What was going through your head in terms of God? Were you angry? Were you confused? Like, I know I asked right off the bat, like, why me? I felt like life was going pretty good for me at that point, and I don't know if that angry is the right word, but I was just confused. I was like, God, why do I have to go through this stuff?
It's interesting. I never had that question. My reaction was, I felt at the time extremely blessed. I mean, we live in Florida. I get to go and fish as often as I like, and it's a pretty blessed life. And so I never really asked why me, and I didn't get mad. And in some regards, I felt like I got what I paid for. And I didn't blame God. Didn't make it any, easier to deal with, I guess I suppose it did. It made it easier to deal with the reality of, I could be leaving soon. But no, I never really had to deal with the anger. I think I went straight to, okay, here we are. This is my new reality. And I'm going to do everything I can to do exactly what God tells me to do. And if it's his plan that he's going to take me, okay, I don't like it, but I've had a great life. I've been very blessed, wonderful family, and I'm happy. If that's as far as this goes, I'm happy with that. I'd like more time, but and I'm going to do everything I can to stay here. Yeah. And thankfully, God agreed that I should stay a little longer.
So what rose up to the top in terms of importance? I'm putting myself in your shoes. You get some pretty scary news. You're told you've got 8 months to live. What rose to the top, and what was kind of towards the top and went down to the bottom?
Well, what was at the top before was business and money, making sure that the company was doing okay, making money. I, at the time, was the company's probably primary seller. And that quickly sunk to the bottom. What rose to the top was relationships, both with God and my family and with friends. And cherishing your time, just cherishing your time. Don't waste time doing something that isn't going to bring you joy or bring glory to God. I mean, don't waste your time. So it was a big eye opener for us. And now what we found out after I was on my back, we just almost literally for a year, doing very heavy chemo treatments, looking like an Auschwitz survivor, was that what I thought the company needed me for wasn't at all what the company needed me for. I thought I was supposed to be the guy who did all the selling and that kind of thing. But what they really needed was a leader to help keep the relationships and the culture of the company together, because in my absence, the wheels began to wobble. And that's really where what we call our rules of engagement were born out of. When those wheels began to really wobble, I learned that they really don't need me to sell. They can do that by themselves, and they did just fine. Matter of fact, the best year we had to date at that time was the year I was on my back.
Wow.
And very shortly after the diagnosis, on my birthday, December 13th, we won the largest contract we had ever won, which carried the company through that year and beyond. So the company was taken care of. God took care of that. But what he needed from me and what our people needed from me was leadership.
And what is the company for? I'm sure some are wondering.
We go by PM2, which stands for Professional Materials Management. We manage and set up inventory for storerooms and things like that for industrial, manufacturing, hospitals, education, just all kinds of spare parts inventory. We've got teams going all over the country doing that.
Very cool. All right. So I'm going to go back to the story. You're obviously here still, so you made it past the 8 months. Was there a time when you knew? I think at some point, I'm trying to find the quote. It was something, I stopped fighting. I surrendered. I read that and I was like, wow. And that can apply to so many things in life, right? And you use that word worry a couple of times because when you're worrying, that essentially means you're not really trusting in God. Right. The God that can basically create miracles and do anything and save someone's life can extend it, 40, 50, 60 years after they've been told they're not going to make it. So was there a time during that where all of a sudden you did surrender, or you just felt like, all right, I know God's going to get me through it? Did you ever lean over to your wife and say, like, I'm going to make this?
Yeah, there was definitely a time, and I can't recount the exact date. I think it is it is in the book, but there was a time that it became very clear to me that it was time for me to relinquish my plan and assume God's plan. And that's what I mean by I stopped fighting and I surrendered. I surrendered to God's plan. It doesn't mean I stopped doing what I needed to do. I guess you could say I fought in the context of I ran 4 miles a day. I ate well. I did everything I needed to do to be a good patient and do all those things. So I guess you could say, well, maybe I was a good fighter there. But in this context, it was, whose plan am I playing to? Whose game plan? And prior to that, I'd been playing to my game plan, and it was not fitting my script. What was happening right here and right now was not fitting my script, and that was not working for me. So I decided at one point that, I needed to set that aside. As somebody said, I can't remember who, just join God in what he's doing and you will have success. And that's when I realized that and acted upon it, things began to turn emotionally, physically. Even God's provision began to turn. I felt that God, many times in the Bible, God responds to faith. He responds to taking a step in faith and obedience in many ways and many times throughout the Bible. Boy, how many times did he rescue the Israelites or win a battle or provide provision in response to a obedient step of faith? And so when I started to do that, things started to turn on really every aspect of my life.
And what does that mean to you? Like, were you just praying more? Were you less concerned about my phone's down here, but phone and email? Like, what did you just slow down the pace of life? I'd love to hear what you did versus what you were doing?
I think it was a shift of focus, where I was focusing on activity that I thought was going to move me in the right direction of my plan. I shifted that activity to be more in tune with God's plan. So I was spending a lot more time in the Bible. I write about it in the book. I think God chooses channels that he speaks to us on. The channel that he speaks to me on is oftentimes a email devotional that comes over the email to me. And I can't tell you how many times, I'm sure you've experienced it too, that the devotion for that morning is exactly what you needed to hear.
Yep.
And so I became much more in tune with the channel that God was speaking to me on, and spent much more time really just trying to hear God speak. And, if not directly to me, through the Bible, through Christian friends. And he's done all the above. He's spoken directly to me. He's spoken through my Christian friends, through Julie, my wife. And then the only question then became, am I going to follow that direction? Or am I going to fight it and go my own way? And it seemed like every time I chose to go my own way, that was not the right choice. And every time I chose to do what he said, and things went much, much better.
Well, talk about the boat and just being on the water. You're an avid angler and love boating. Do you kind of get that sense that God's out there with you? I know I have so many times, especially when I'm out there just by myself, even on a kayak. I feel like there's something magical happening, and I have heard from God multiple times out on the water. And I know that's different for everybody. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree. Well, Jesus loves fishermen. Before the disciples or something, they were fishermen. So we've got an in, right? So, but yeah, there are times that I just enjoy going out by myself for that very reason. Early in the morning, as the sun's coming up, I mean, you've been there. That's the time that your ears are open, your eyes are open to hear something from the Lord. And maybe the bite is slow, and maybe that's God's plan because he needs to say something to you at that moment. But yeah, it's, I guess I would stop short of saying that fishing is a spiritual activity, but boy, I sure hear a lot from God when I'm out on the boat, because it's just a different connection with nature. It's a way to, I find that the oftentimes the best time to hear from God is to change your venue. And what better venue, I can't think of one, than being out on the boat, out on the water, doing something you like to do, but also, it's quiet. You go to a place, Jesus said, go to a place that's quiet and secluded and pray. Oh, I can't think of a better place to do that than on a boat.
Amen. I want to talk about the word mission and purpose, because I know this was a big shift for me prior to going through the cancer. I would certainly call myself a Christian. A lot changed afterwards, and having kids certainly took it a whole different level. But what was interesting, Dan, is I had no purpose and no mission prior to that. And I'm not talking about just like a written down mission statement, but I wasn't living for God. I was basically living to make money. You mentioned earlier, it was like, I want to make money and buy this next house and newest car. What shifted there, and what does that look like in your life now in terms of a mission and purpose? Why are you living? What's keeping you going now?
What we learned over the years is that we can't identify ourselves by our possessions or even our activities. I'm a fisherman. Well, I think of myself of a fisherman, always have, but that's not my purpose in life. My purpose in life is to try to act more like a fisher of men. Love God's people, love all people. He called us to love people. So when we, earlier in the story, I write about how we identified ourselves by the house that we lived in, the boat that we had, and all this. And then later in the story, after he had healed me and restored us on many levels, financially and otherwise, we had the opportunity to move back out on the water. And we struggled with that and really prayed about that, because we said, this time is not going to be like last time. If we come out here, God, we commit to you that we're going to make our house a refuge. Mm-hmm. And that includes the boat. It's a refuge to build relationships with, help people, commune with the Lord, and let us be vehicles for that.
Love it.
Actually, I wrote, it'll probably never make the top 40, but I wrote a song, and it's called Fisherman's Apprentice, same as the book title. And part of it says, but Jesus said life's about more than fishing. He says we should live for a greater plan. He's calling me to a higher mission, to be a fisher of men. And that's I think what we're all called to do.
Ooh, love it. I wrote that down, the refuge, because we're having the same issue right now. My wife and I were, especially prior to that, focused on a lot of the stuff, and then downsized. And now we're getting to a point where we can afford to maybe, get a house on the water. Right now, we're not on one. And I'm not talking about the ocean, but just the lake here in Winter Haven where we live. And I'm glad you shared that with me, because that's something I was literally praying on today. So cool how God brings the right things in there.
Yeah.
So I know somewhere in the book you talked about like your last fishing trip with a guy named Eric. I don't know who Eric is, but I saw that note. So I want to kind of circle back a little bit. There was still, like you said, a year on your back. There was a lot of scary times. Did you have a last fishing trip with this guy Eric? Tell me about that. I thought that was interesting.
Well, yeah, there was a time that any reasonable person looking at the statistics figured that I was leaving soon. So Eric, my very good friend and co-founder of our company, took me and my dad and his father on what was at that time, he thought it would be a last fishing trip. And we went down to Louisiana and fished for yellowfin tuna. Yeah. And wound up catching a huge shark that day, and some amberjack and things. But that happened more than once. I had family members and friends coming down, not saying it in so many words, but we knew why they were coming down, that they thought this would be the last time they may see me. And they knew I loved to fish, and they did too. So they thought, what better thing to do with my friend or my brother or my son, then go fishing, maybe one last time. So that was very special. At the same time, it was, you realize why they're coming, and you know that the numbers, all the statistics are leaning in that direction. So those are the times you lean into God even deeper. He told us, Julie and I both, he told us on separate occasions that it was going to get really ugly before it got better. And it did. It got ugly. But we took hope. We took great, comfort in that he gave us enough to have hope that, look, it is going to be ugly, and I'll be with you during it, but it's going to get better after that. And then there was one point later on in the story that I finally got up the gumption to ask God, where is it going to get better, God? You said it's going to get better. Well, better is heaven. We know that. Is that what you mean? Where are you going to do this? Is it going to be here or in heaven? And I got a very clear answer that morning when I asked him. And I was afraid of the answer, so it really took me a long time to even ask. And happily, I got the answer I was hoping for, that it's here, that it's going to get better here. And it certainly has.
So you feel like you've been restored and then some from the health. Apparently it's back. Business is growing. Your relationship with your wife, friends, all the things that you said really matter, all better.
Yeah. I mean, literally every aspect of life is all hitting on all cylinders. Even in this pandemic, we would have thought that PM2 would be having a terrible, terrible year, but here we are. God provided. One of my friends in my C12 group said that behind this trial, behind this challenge, this learning, is the blessing. And it certainly was. And we're experiencing it right now. I wasn't declared cured by the medical community until really not even just a little over a year ago.
Wow.
So 14 years ago, 12, 13 years ago. So that's a long time. And I was all that time thinking, God's going to always leave that there at some level, because that is the lever that he uses to keep my attention. And I fully believed that. But the other thing that I believed that I learned differently was that I thought there was a very cause-effect relationship between what I did and how God responded. And yes, that does happen. But what I learned was that God heals sinners while they are still sinning. So I had it in my mind that I had to, for lack of a better term, be perfect. I had, if I was ever going to be healed completely, I could have no blemish, because I had to do everything as God told me to. And that was wrong thinking. It was wrong thinking. Jesus died on the cross for sinners, and he healed me, even though I'm still not perfect and never will be. And I take great hope in that for everyone. And I hope people get that from the book, that when they read that no matter what they've done or what challenge they face, there's always hope. God is an amazing God.
You have one quote that I wrote down that I absolutely love. And it says, how we respond in crisis is who we think is in charge. I don't know why that it hit me, and we all go through it. I'm sure someone here listening right now is going through a crisis, whether it be cancer or loss of a job or divorce or whatever it is. There's just a long list of things that we could say. And it's tough sometimes, but looking back now, I know exactly why I had to go through that. And I'm sure you do too. Right. And now you've written a whole book about it, The Fisherman's Apprentice. Talk about that and how that came about. I know it's a labor of love to write an entire book, and you share a lot of personal stuff in there. Talk about that, and even just what it means to be a fisher of men to you.
Yeah, well, from the very beginning, we had so many people in our church and our personal circle praying for us. They knew the story, they knew the odds, and everybody, as they began to see how God was providing and healing and doing all the amazing things that He has done, they began to ask me, when are you going to write this down? And it took me a while because I didn't view myself as someone that might ever write a book. But when I realized that the story was too valuable, it's not about me as the writer, that the story is too valuable to hold to myself. And so I'm hoping and praying that the writing does the story justice, but the story is the story that God gave me to tell. So that's what had to be out there. And some of the stuff is, kind of a little personal. And, I get very transparent about some of the struggles that men, particularly in the US, I think struggle with all the time. And I'm right there with you guys. And I write about that. And I've screwed up like a lot of us have. So I needed to include that in the book. This is a book about forgiveness and restoration. And I'm hoping there would be hope coming from that people would see. Potentially avoid my mistakes. That would be even better. But also maybe learn from some of the tools that I was given. These are nothing I made up. These were things that God brought me, or Christian friends of mine brought me, wonderful tools to help a person stay in between the buoys in life.
Could you share a couple? Is it like, devotionals or like a once a day Bible or anything like that, or what?
Yeah, well, two things that to me are extremely valuable. One is journaling. My C12 chair from almost day one started asking me, when am I going to start journaling? And wow, I see that now as my miracle tracker. If ever I have a question about whether God is in my life, or when was the last time he rescued me or provided for me or solved this problem or gave me hope, it's a Word document. So all I have to do is hit search in a Word document, and I can go exactly to several stories, instances where again and again over the years, God has provided or rescued me, or given me a piece of wisdom that I didn't have before. And so journaling is one huge one. I encourage everyone to do. The other is accountability group. I became again at Scott's prodding, became a part of an accountability group, and especially us guys, we wrestle with stuff that our wives don't wrestle with. We have, one of the guys in one of my Christian men's groups said, he says, a man stops talking about sex or thinking about sex about halfway through the embalming process. And it's the way we're wired, it's not an excuse. It just is. And so, we need help. We need to be in a small group of men that we can ask ourselves hard questions, hold one another accountable, encourage one another when things are going well. And I like the last question we have a list of questions we go through, and the last one is, have you just lied to me? So those are two really valuable ones that I'd recommend for anybody to just really help you. Number one, remember what God's been doing for you, and two, hold you accountable and keep you within those buoys.
So we have a lot of audience members, and it's the reason this is called Unchurched. I felt God was calling me to reach out to a lot of our audience who loves fishing and are fishermen, but not necessarily ready to be fishers of men. And I know you were probably there at one point in your journey, and I certainly was, and I've shared that on some prior podcasts. What's some of your best advice for the man or woman who they know they want more, they know they want a better relationship with God, they're going through a tough time, and maybe they don't have a church yet, and they don't have friends who are going to church that will pray over them? what are just some things that, that if they were sitting there next to you having coffee, that you would share with them to do? What are some kind of first steps before you're going out there and discipling others, but just to kind of get yourself right and yourself starting to pray and journaling? What's the first step before all the other things happen?
Yeah, I think get to know him, get to know the Lord. So however it is you do that. I mean, in things that are very helpful for me are email devotions that come to me. Yep. We actually do that together. I have a small group of men that we do every morning. We're on the phone. We read the devotion. Maybe we read a small passage from the Bible. The Bible app is actually really nice. You can actually have it read for you. And some guy that sounds like a movie star is reading it, and it's easy to listen to, and then you have some discussion about it. So that's the number one thing, is get to know God, so you understand what his MO is, so you can begin to understand what you might be able to expect from him. He's a good father, he acts like a good father, but that's number one. Just do whatever you can to understand his character, and reading the Bible is a great way to do it. I mean, the Bible is his personal diary, in my opinion. It's his autobiography. So you want to learn about God, read the Bible, but there's a lot in the Bible that, sometimes we need help from, Christian friends to understand and dissect. And that's very, very helpful. So yeah. And then beyond that, once you, I think, build that foundation, you're working on that foundation. I guess what I learned is that we shouldn't be intimidated by the term fisher of men, or disciple, or minister, whatever term you put on it. All we're called to do is love people. And then if we're given an opportunity to express to that person where our hope comes from, why are we this way? Well, you're so hopeful, you're so loving, you're so, you truly care about me. Then you can begin to talk about, well, you know what? Here's my experience. Tell people your story. That's the other thing. Everybody has a story as it relates to God, as it relates to your relationship with God. Everybody has a story, and be prepared to share that when the opportunity arises. But I think it all starts with a relationship. If we don't have a relationship, it becomes very scary to think that I'm going to go out and somehow fish for men and hook somebody, and drag them into heaven. I don't think that's how it works. I think being on a boat, fishing with someone, being a good friend, listening to them, building a relationship, that's what fishing for men looks like, in my opinion. And then it can go from there, about, the things of God and ultimately the gospel, that Jesus died for us all. And we're going to go to heaven. How about you? But that comes from a relationship, I believe.
Yeah. I'll share one thing that helped me. I was really struggling with the Bible. I found it just kind of, forgive me, God, for saying just boring. It was tough, right? Just to pick up versus like a normal book. I love reading. It really struggled. And I finally had a pastor in Woodstock, Georgia, named Steve Craig, gave me the One a Day Bible. And so it's, essentially 15 minutes, sometimes 12 minutes. You do that every day. It's so simple. And it made it simple for me. And I made a commitment to do it every day for an entire year. And after a year, you've read the whole thing. It breaks it up. I would highly recommend it. I'm probably going to go through and do it again. It was so helpful, and I learned so much. And I started asking questions that I was really, really struggling with, because I could now write down and highlight, and it's like, I don't understand what the heck they're talking about here. And it opened up so many conversations, and it opened up my mind. And I heard a pastor recently talking about his wife got a brand new truck. And it was, very fancy compared to the, 14-year-old truck she had before with all the new electronics. And they had a little issue come up, which couldn't figure out what, where to turn on something. And what's the first thing you do in a brand new car or truck to find out how to fix something, right? You open up the glove department and you look for the manual, right? There's an instruction manual that the maker of that vehicle put together. And sometimes it's 400 pages. It's everything you want to know. And he's like, not looking at the Bible or reading the Bible is just the same as throwing that out and just saying, you know what, I'm going to go put diesel in here today instead of the normal gas. Mm-hmm. He's like, the Bible's literally giving you the entire blueprint. It is the manual. And so many of us just throw the thing out, and including me, and I've been guilty so many times of ignoring it, even though I know I should do it. And so what you said was just a great reminder. And I'm going to put down as a to-do for myself, accountability, is to start getting back into that one a day. It made it so easy on top of the other stuff I'm doing. It was just a no-brainer for an extra 15 minutes. And I love the surrender part. I think, Dan, that's something that I struggle with as a man, and is one of the co-founders of my company, and so people counting on me, my wife and kids counting on me, and I have a tough time surrendering and just saying, it's easy to say, God, this is yours, and we believe it. It's a different thing, just being candid, to not work 12 hours in a given day, and just to maybe not check your emails at night and just hang out with the wife and the kids on the couch. It's something I constantly struggle with, and I know a lot of people do. So talk through now, if you don't mind, where you are today. It sounds like you're in a great space. Are you working less and just praying more and enjoying life more? What's that look like?
Well, yeah, God blessed me with two really good senior managers at PM2, and they run the day-to-day operation. My brothers in my C12 group helped me understand probably 2 years ago that I was in the way for PM2, and I needed to get out of the way. I think it's a very common thing. It's very, I should say, uncommon for the founder of a business to be the one that takes that business to exponential growth. Mm-hmm. Very rare.
Yeah.
We just have way too much baggage, way too much history. We think nobody can do it better than us. As you said, Joe, we're fixers, we're doers. We're entrepreneurs. We want to get out and knock it down. And when I realized that was me, that I was in the way, and I needed to get out of the way, I hired one team member and then another to manage PM2 for me. So today, my day looks like an occasional leadership call. I'm still involved. Julie and I both. Julie's the CEO. I'm the president. We're both from a strategic level involved, but the day-to-day is Mark and Eric running it. So that has afforded me the ability to really focus on. Of course, we're putting the finishing touches on the book. Yeah. We're focusing on really the side of life that makes our home a refuge. And we actually, God blessed us, we were able to actually buy this house that we'd been renting for several years. We bought it back in July, and so now I'm a part-time carpenter, and painter and plumber and all that. But it's afforded me the time to do that, to make our home, the refuge that God intended for it to be. So that's been fantastic. And the morning devotion times with Mark and Eric has those continue. Every morning we're on the phone, and we spend some time, reading the Bible, spend some time with devotion, and that's really quality time. So my role at PM2 is really one of leader and really almost more of a mentor than the company leader. I'm a support function for Mark and Eric.
Yeah.
And it's afforded me a lot of flexibility to take people out fishing every once in a while.
Love it. What do you pray for now? What's the top of your list? Can you share?
Opportunities. Opportunities with people. When I get, if the business starts taking a dive or whatever, we're a project-based business, so it can be cyclical.
Yep.
And, I find myself praying for, financial business provision, but more often than not, we're praying for opportunities. God told us to make our home a refuge. Okay, God, we're working on that. We think we have a wonderful home here. So give us the opportunity. And as it happens, we happen to have an opportunity before us right now, but we just pray for more and more of those.
So if it came up again and you found out that you only had a few months to live, knowing where you are now, what do you want to be known for? I'm sure the book is a part of it. What, in a sentence or two or a paragraph, what do you want to be known for after all this is said and done? Kind of a deep question.
Yeah, well, I guess I'd like to be known as somebody who finally learned the lesson. You'll see in the book I'm a very slow and stubborn learner, and it took a lot of repetition. But I finally got the lesson, and I would love to be remembered as just a loving, faithful, and obedient man who followed what God told him to do, and knowing that everything else falls into place if you do that. So that's what I'd like to be remembered for.
Love it. All right. So the book, tell us where we can go. And I know you do speaking as well. I watched one of your videos that was awesome. And you have a site, right? danfloen.com. It's FLOEN.com. And then the book is coming out when?
Here's just a sneak peek there. That's the mock-up of the cover.
Love it.
I don't know if you can see that. There it is.
Oh yeah.
And there'll be we just set the pre-launch date this morning. It's March 19th. Okay. On that day, we'll have a 99-cent sale, which you can go out on Amazon and buy it for 99 cents, and it would be the ebook version. Yep. And then a matter of weeks after that, then the paper book version would be available. So coming out in just beginning of February, probably a couple months before the paperback comes out. But cool. We're getting close.
That's great. And in speaking, is that something you're still doing there? I saw that on the tab. Like I said, watch a couple of videos.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I've got a couple of invitations from a couple churches right now. So it's just having been working on the book for 5 or 6 years now or more. Now there's, I guess, a renewed excitement or interest, I guess you could say, that the fact that it's coming out. So yes, we're getting more interest to speak. So you can go out to danfloen.com and actually request me to come speak if you like, or you can also there's a button there to reserve your copy of the book, so that when the book is available, I'll get you on the list to be notified when it's available. So, I invite you to go out there and visit.
Fisherman's Apprentice, The Making of a Fisher of Men, the true story of how God uses devastating circumstances and incredible miracles to shape one stubborn fisherman into a fisher of men, and a great little video down below of you on the water. I love it, man. I'm so proud of you that you did that. And clearly there's a reason that God wanted you here on this earth still. And man, I mean, what a remarkable story. And the worst thing that you could ever see from someone is they get that miracle, they get that second chance, and they kind of blow it. And it seems like, from everything I can see, I know you're not perfect, none of us are, but you're making the best of every minute. I'm super proud to know you, and looking forward to hopefully getting on the water soon.
Yeah, absolutely.
We talked a little bit offline that, God sometimes uses a tough bite, if you will, to kind of get the conversations going. And I'm just looking back at some of the best conversations, even with friends and family, that I kind of thought I knew the story or their story, and something just comes up and comes out, and next thing you know, it just, wow, like complete 180 of where things are going. And now we're having a really deep conversation just about life and faith and religion. And I think there's just something special about being on the water with someone, and or yourself, when you're just trying to get some questions answered, even if you don't like the answer sometimes, like you and I did in a couple instances. But there's something special about it. So, man, really proud of you. I love the title of the picture, and I'm excited to read the full thing. I've got the manuscript now, and I'm pumped to go through it all.
Joe, appreciate you having me on this morning. Good to meet you in person.
Yes. So everyone, please go buy the book when it comes out. Go to danfloen.com. We'll put a link in the show notes. It's saltstrong.com/unchurched, where you can see this episode. We'll have the video. I know a lot of you listen on iTunes and Stitcher and Spotify and all the million places this is out there. Please definitely go and do leave a comment. I know we get comments all over the place from YouTube and Facebook and even the podcast platforms. The one that always comes to me like right away into my inbox is on the saltstrong.com site. So please do try to go there. I'm trying to start moving people there, because I was doing a bad job of having people comment everywhere, and I can't get to all of them. So try to go there, saltstrong.com/unchurched, and you'll see this entire episode there. So Dan, thank you again, my friend. And I'm going to come visit your C12 group as well. I've done a few here in Central Florida. I have not made it over to Tampa yet. So
I'd love to have you. Love to have you.
I don't know about the rest of the guys there, but at least I'll have one friend.
We got a lot of fishermen in our group, so I think you fit right in.
Cool. Well, thank you again, man. I'm really excited about reading this book and diving a little bit deeper.
All right. Thank you, Joe. Appreciate it.
Thank you, my friend.
God bless you.
You too.
'Cause fishing